Hello everyone, welcome to today's episode of Let's Talk, an NTUSU initiated series discussing youth concerns. I'm Ethan McCulley, and I'm a member of the Gender Equality Committee of NTUSU, and I'm your host for today. So today we have with us Minister of State Xueling, who will be sharing with us her insights on gender equality and how they might tie in with her experiences as a politician, a leader, and as a mother. So without further ado, let's welcome Ms. Sun. So today we're having an unboxing session of several items, and we'll be discussing how these items might relate to your experiences with gender equality, as well as there will also be some questions accompanying each item that we collated from our students through polls and surveys, like, oh, what would you want to ask the Minister of State? So the very first item is just here, so please reach into it and tell us what it is, and show the camera.
Ta-da! Okay, a milk bottle.
And when was the last time that you used?
When was the last time I used this? Quite recently, actually. I have a young daughter. She's 4.5, so she drank milk from a milk bottle up till she was 2. So I said 2.5 years ago when I was using this. Yes, I got married young, but I didn't have children till I was much older. I was about 34, 35. So you can imagine, it's like one of those things when you look at a pregnancy test kit and you're like, ta-da!
This is new. Okay.
Yeah, kind of thing. Yeah. So I think it was a shock to the system in the sense that I think within the family you have to think about how you organize your resources, your time, and I think it's very important that couples have a meaningful and honest conversation with each other as to who's going to do what, And I think what's important is that there must be communication, and that's what strengthens relationships, I think, within a family. Several of our friends and be it NTUSU or the other unions or other undergraduates, you may not be married yet, but many of you would have relationships. And I think even at that stage, between partners, between couples, you would already be having those conversations. Maybe not about who holds the milk bottle, but where
Probably
you go.
A little far-sighted.
But about where to go for a meal, what they're going to do for the weekend, those are conversations.
Okay, and when your first daughter was born, what were you working as? Where were you?
I was in the private sector. I was in banking. It was a very strenuous job, both physically, mentally, emotionally as well.
And so, what was the experience like after you had your daughter, then going back to work and having to manage both?
I was working overseas then, when I had my first daughter, and
this was Hong Kong.
Yes, this was Hong Kong, and the support system around my family wasn't quite there. I mean, obviously my parents were not there, my in-laws were not there. Housing conditions in Hong Kong, it's a lot more cramped. So even if you wanted a domestic helper, I think it was not so conducive, not so easy. So I made the decision to relocate back to Singapore. Yeah, and I think when people think about starting a family, as part of that conversation, you also want to be thinking about where you think there can be roles that your extended family can play. Especially, I think, for working mothers. I think that every little bit of additional help is always helpful. Yeah.
So it was difficult, right, given that you were working in banking?
Yes.
And so do you feel like, given your interactions with constituents or experiences with Singaporeans, do you think that Singaporean mothers generally feel a pressure to stop work in order to raise the family?
I think inevitably when a child comes along, working women would start thinking about how to balance their responsibilities at work and at home. And I think that's where what I was talking about having honest conversations are important, not just at home with the husband, but also potentially with their bosses and their employers. I think more and more young fathers in Singapore want to be involved.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's the sense I get, because I'm the MP for Punggol. There are many, many young families there, and I see it. I see fathers walking prams. Many of them actually exercise while running with a pram.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, I mean,
two birds in one stone.
Yes, I mean, the child gets a little bit of wind, in the pram, the father's running.
He's exercising.
He's exercising, Many times when parents approach me to talk about concerns they have about their children's education, the fathers are very involved. Yeah, so I think this is it's a good and positive trend, and I think it should be the case. So I think back to the question about workplaces, I think even men, sometimes they may adjust their routines. For instance, they could be telling their bosses that, hey, I want to go home earlier from work because I want to spend time with my family, or my wife needs support now that we have a new baby. I'm pretty sure that these conversations are also happening.
So now we can move on to the next box of, and just reach in and tell us what's inside.
Exciting, exciting. We have a spatula and a time card, a punch card.
A punch card, yes, and a spatula. Do you cook, Emma, soon? I understand that you're very busy. So.
No, well, I used to cook a lot more, especially when I was studying.
When you're studying?
Yeah, when I was studying, stayed in a hostel and so on and so forth.
Okay, okay. And did you have like a favorite thing that you would like a go-to dish when you're cooking at the time?
I'm embarrassed to tell you what that go-to dish is. It's like egg and onion.
Egg and onion, like an omelette? Or?
Like an omelette, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you cooked it, right? It wasn't...
Yes, I did cook
okay,
it.
Okay,
It's
you like
simple
break it into a
enough.
glass and chop the onions.
The fantastic thing about egg and onion is that you can eat it for breakfast, you can eat it for lunch, you can eat it for dinner, you can eat it for supper as well. Yes.
That's true. Okay, I mean fair enough. I'm not a master chef myself. I can make egg as well. I can make Indomie. That's about
okay, Indomie. Yes.
That's about as far as you get. Now you don't cook as much. So do you spend more time at work or at home?
I do spend a relatively large amount of time at work.
It's not easy running the country.
But I do enjoy it. I mean, interacting with residents and also people from all walks of life. Like I said, I think it has been an incredibly enriching experience doing these conversations on Singapore women's development. We've talked to so many people. I wish even more men participated, actually.
The idea behind the punch card was because you use the punch card like clock in and clock out of work, right? So there's this thing in sociology, this idea of a second shift. So usually people after the day of work, so that's the first shift. Then they have the second shift of taking care of the kids and cooking and cleaning the house. Invariably, the woman ends up shouldering most of these responsibilities. In Singapore, at least, how do you think the idea of the second shift would affect? How do you think it affects women?
I think it's important that we support women so that they don't feel that they have no choices. So for instance, where there are young children concerned, that there are adequate childcare facilities around, infant care, other forms of supporting infrastructure, so that the young mom knows that actually when I'm working, I can put the child in a childcare facility that I trust, that is accessible, affordable, and is of high quality. So she has that peace of mind. Same goes for if there is an elderly person at home, that there is an elder care facility around, or there's a day activity centre. So I think the supporting infrastructure is an important one. And that is where community stakeholders, that's where the government comes in, because we build that infrastructure, that ecosystem around couples.
So that's the final question. In the 2019 population report and other population reports before that, we see a trend where more and more families are deciding not to have children, probably deferring starting a family in the name of focusing on their career, right? So what advice would you give these young couples in terms of better managing, being able to cope with, better manage working as well as starting their family?
I think most of us, myself included, we looked at it, or I looked at it sequentially.
What do you mean by that?
Let me focus on my career first. I want to achieve this.
Then once they're settled, then...
Yeah, I want to achieve these milestones first before I think about starting a family. I think many of us have that sequential approach.
Way of thinking and approaching it.
Way of thinking, nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
I just think
it's very pragmatic.
It's very pragmatic, it's very common, because you believe that when you invest your energies and resources wholeheartedly into something at one point in time, the likelihood that you achieve success in that aspect is greater.
Rather than splitting the efforts.
Indeed. Yeah, I think it's a very pragmatic approach. But I think we also need to recognize that there are opportunity costs when you do that. I saw it for myself firsthand because that was what I did, and eventually when I decided to have a child at 34, 35, it's okay to have the first child then, but you're thinking of having more children thereafter.
And
it gets later and later now. Then at some point you have to ask yourself whether or not the opportunity is still there for a woman to have a child in her 40s, and that that you're able to manage the risk and medical risk and all that.
So Emerson, we can move on to the next item, which is in the box. So, again, you know the drill.
Yes. Okay, these are lab goggles.
Did you ever use them in school? Did you do
Yeah, I think
have lab stuff?
chemistry.
Chemistry, and did you enjoy chemistry, or were you? I personally did not enjoy it.
It was a rather long time ago.
Oh, that's true. That's true. That's true.
Oops.
But from memory, not much.
I thought it was quite exciting actually. I remember we were playing around with these burners, and I don't know whether they still and then you still have.
I have to admit, I was terrified of those things. I liked it like that. I was terrified of it. Yeah. I didn't really enjoy chem. You enjoyed it.
I mean, I remember that quite well. Yeah, I did. I think what we would call the 3 sciences.
Okay.
Yeah. But eventually, I took up a humanities course.
Notwithstanding like male-dominated industries like STEM and investment banking, there are also like female industries that are more dominated by females. Something like healthcare or early childhood education, right? So, would you have any advice to give to anyone who is hoping to break into one of these industries that are dominated by someone of the opposite gender that they are?
I think for the MOE, we're very conscious that through career guidance, what we call ECG, that we proactively speak to our students through our teaching personnel to let them be aware of the opportunities that are available to both boys and girls in the STEM industry. I think what is important is always ensuring that there is fair opportunity and opportunities for all. What the outcomes are is really a function of personal choice.
Correct. You can't change that.
Yeah, but we must, in the first instance, ensure that
Provide
there are the opportunities and the choice, so that the individual doesn't end up feeling that actually the only reason why I did this was because I had no other choice, or that I thought only this was what I could do. I think that would be quite sad. And I think at the MOE and in our institutes of higher learning, we proactively ensure that those opportunities are communicated to both boys and girls.
You also entered politics as well, where we definitely have less female MPs.
I think our representation now is about 30% women. Yeah.
Did you ever feel like that such a situation like posed any difficulties for you, where there were less women around to share the experiences with, etc.?
No, not really. I think when we interact with our residents, I think residents see you as a member of parliament, and I think in parliament, any given topic of the day that comes up, I think both male parliamentarians and women parliamentarians just
they're equally welcome to
address it. Actually, it's more a function of their familiarity with the topic,
and not so
their
much
interest.
Gender-based.
It's not so much gender-based. It's more about their personal experiences, I think, and what they're familiar with and what they are equipped. That knowledge that they have. Yeah.
So last box, please reach in and tell us what's inside.
Okay. Oh, let me see. DVDs. Intern, The Crown, and what's this? Game of Thrones.
Have you watched any of these shows?
One of the 3.
Which one have you watched?
I've seen some episodes of Game of Thrones, but
Okay.
I think it's quite a long series, so
Yeah,
I
it's
didn't watch
actually-
the whole thing. Yeah.
Okay. And did you enjoy it? Are you?
It was quite violent.
Okay, so not so much. More of the violence that you remember. The reason we brought these in today, because these are all mostly about female leaders. Like in the first one, we have it's about Anne Hathaway playing a female CEO of like a fashion startup, and then in The Crown we have Queen Elizabeth, right? And Game of Thrones you have characters like I believe it's Cersei Lannister and Daenerys Targaryen. That's correct. My brother loves the show, so he'll hit me if I get it wrong. Yeah. So these are like strong female leaders in these shows.
Okay.
But like in real life we have less women in leadership positions currently, right? And statistically, there are just less female leaders, females in leadership positions.
I think the question about why and what we should do about it, I think firstly we should try as much as possible to ensure that there are opportunities for women to play these more senior roles. And I think by senior roles, we don't have to define it just to CEO position or a board member, though they are quite
Prominent.
prominent. You could be a senior executive. I mean, the CFO, COO,
CIO, all these different abbreviations.
There are many, and also even senior managers. There are actually many opportunities for women to play these roles. So I think it is definitely important that we recognize it as a society, that these numbers and statistics ought to be improved. And then following from that, we should ask ourselves what potentially are the bottlenecks that prevent women from moving into these positions if there are bottlenecks. So I think it comes back to opportunities at an organization's level to make sure that these opportunities are provided to women to excel, and also that there be opportunity for women to be equipped with the skills that will enable them to excel in those functions. And the third, I think, is about the importance of networks. Because sometimes I think when it comes to board appointments, sometimes there is a little bit of that, I know someone who's quite good, and then who knows someone. And maybe we need to look at how we can include women into these networks, to consciously form networks where women are an active part of it, so that people know that if I need a board member who has these skills, and I appreciate diversity in my organization, that I know where to go to look for a pool of women who have these capabilities. And I think that's what we're trying to do with, for example, our Council for Board Diversity. It was set up for that purpose, and I know that they are building up a pipeline of women who have the capabilities, the abilities to be able to take on these senior positions and to put them in the public's eye, so that people know where to go to look for them.
So before you go, MOS soon, just one last question. So what does a gender equal Singapore look like to you?
Where there is fair opportunity provided to women and men when it comes to opportunities to advance in the workplace, opportunity to pursue your passions in school, and frank and honest conversations at home, so that couples can decide on how they can grow together. That, I think, would be my ideal of how a more equal society in Singapore can be.
Well, I've learned a great deal from everything that you shared today, and soon, and I'm sure our viewers will be enormously grateful with all the insight that you shared. So it's truly been an honor and a privilege to have you here with us today. So from everyone here, we wish you all the best in your continued service to our nation. Thank you.
I wish everyone well as well. Stay safe, be well. Yes, and I look forward to where we next have the opportunity to interact. Thank you very much.
For our audience, thank you so much for watching our video today. We hope that after what we shared, you'll be inspired to strive towards a more gender equal Singapore, and as well as spark discussion of all these important topics. Do leave a comment below on whatever your thoughts may be on what was shared today, and if you enjoyed this video, do like and subscribe, and watch out for the rest of our gender equality series. Thank you.